I'm doing good. How are you? I can hear you loud and clear.
All right, maybe this works. Mr. Marceau, obviously, you can still hear me, right?
I can still hear you.
Okay. Hopefully this works. Let's see. We can hear the other guy, but we can't hear you. All right, for anyone that's listening live now, can you hear me now? Mr. Marceau is obviously still very audible. Alexis is like my fucking IT guy, my IT girl. She's gonna let me know if this works. I gotta make sure this works. If we all right, now she can hear me. All right, now everyone can hear me. All right, perfect. All right, awesome. These are things we figure out before we get going here, just before we get ranting and raving, and you can only hear Mr. Marceau, which is totally fine. Hey, a Mr. Marceau solo show works as well. He's got a lot to say too, but we got to start with the obvious here, Mr. Marceau. We're going to get into the Penta stuff as we review Raw a little bit later on. A lot of topics to get into, but we just touched upon this very briefly before we hit record here. Corey Graves heat question mark. I have it in the title. There's been a lot of talk of Corey Graves this week as someone who, has been obviously an announcer for WWE for the last decade plus, having to retire from the ring. They transitioned him immediately to a commentator role back in late 2014 for the NXT brand, where he stayed for a couple years. They promoted him to the main roster in 2016, where he's been ever since, and he's been a staple of the Raw and SmackDown commentary teams. PLEs. He's made occasional returns to NXT. He's been pretty much, I don't want to say the face of the commentary team, or the voice rather. That's really Michael Cole. He's essentially the voice of WWE. But their go to color commentator has been Corey Graves. And that was kind of put into question this past week when he made these series of questionable tweets about being frustrated. And it all started last week on NXT on the New Year's Evil show when I didn't really put much stock into it or notice it myself. But when they introduced Corey Graves as a member of the NXT announce team, he didn't seem overly thrilled, okay? And then people were like, oh, we must not be happy. And, people read too much into things. I don't really go off of, oh, like he looked unhappy. That could have been anything. He's also a heel commentator, so who knows? And then the report came out that he was only on NXT temporarily, or was supposed to be, was going to be, whatever, during the football season. And as it turned out, he was not on NXT this week. He made a comment or a tweet right after Raw went off the air that he has actually since deleted, to the extent of, it kind of hurts being replaced by someone more famous and having a passion for this, blah, blah, blah. Reportedly, per either Fightful or PW Insider, I forget the exact source, but two very credible sources, they reported that he's been unhappy for a while, and then there might be some internal heat, rather, on Corey Graves for some of the comments he made on social media. And Corey's been largely, by and large, very professional with WWE and not making comments and whatever. He doesn't really have a history of doing this sort of stuff. Beyond the stuff that he tweeted about Punk and them used to being friends, they used to be friends and then they weren't friends, and then Punk went to UFC and he fucking dumped him or whatever it was. He sounded like a jilted ex-lover, like Seth Rollins does on Raw, actually, in his feud at CM Punk. Beyond that, and that was years ago, he doesn't really have a history of doing this sort of stuff. So that kind of came out of nowhere, made me think it was a work. Apparently not, because he made a comment the next day saying, you'll hear from me tonight on NXT, and then sure enough, lo and behold, he was not on NXT. He was not flown in, or not flown in. I mean, it's in fucking Orlando. I think he probably lives around there with Carmella. And he wasn't on the show, and we really haven't heard much about him since. And like I said, there's been internal reports that he's been unhappy for a while. So I know I mentioned a lot there, Mr. Marceau, but what's your immediate reaction to the Corey Graves news? And I guess my first and foremost question is, work or shoot?
I mean, it's like a weird situation, I guess is the best way to put it. Like, I think he's great and all. And then he's coming out saying, oh, I'm not going to be on Raw, obviously with McAfee back.
Yep.
But I mean, it was up to me. I mean, I prefer him more than Wade Barrett. So, not that I would say Wade, you're SOL, but I think Corey does have a spot on the main roster. I think him and Tessitore, I think, would be pretty good together. And like I said, I like him more than Wade. But I mean, I guess my one thing with, I mean, celebrities, anyone, I don't understand the whole like tweet and then delete tweet. Like, whatever you say is going to be under a microscope.
Yep.
So why say it if you're going to have to retract it 2 or 3 days later? You just kind of sound like an idiot. But
Yeah, that's what
I
surprised
mean,
me. Yeah.
I definitely get his situation and frustration. I mean, he's been with the company. It's kind of like Rollins or like the full-time people upset with like the part-time people. Like, yeah, they're more popular. They're there all the time. But at the end of the day, the more popular person is going to get the run or the championship. It's like with Brock. Like people complain like, oh, Brock's not there, but X, Y, and Z is there every show. But like, guess what? He's top billing every time. It's kind of the same thing with McAfee. Like, yeah, Corey Graves is great and all, but McAfee is the bigger name. He has the podcast. He has the reach. They're going to go with him over Corey, unfortunately. But, I mean, that's kind of in any line of work that, unfortunately, the person that busts their ass doesn't always get top billing.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say I'm too surprised that whenever Pat McAfee comes back, that he gets the center stage. Like you said, he gets top billing in the Raw commentary team. What I guess made me think it was a work, at this point, I don't really think so. Unless they're really going deep into this, and Ahmed mentioned in the chat that Corey lives in Pittsburgh. I guess they both live in Pittsburgh. I should probably know that because they did that whole mini Total Divas-esque reality show with Corey Graves and Carmella a few years ago. They probably established on that show that they live in Pittsburgh now. I think they did, actually, so I totally forgot about that. And then he wasn't on NXT. I think he was at the Orlando airport. He probably flew in for NXT. Then they told him to go home, probably. I don't know. We might not be seeing him on TV for a while. I don't know if they're going to let him go. But yeah, the making the unprofessional comments thing. I mean, obviously he can vent frustration, which is essentially what he was doing. But the way in which he worded it, especially in a business where everyone thinks everything is a storyline, I think there was a reason to think that if it's not already a storyline, that it could be turned into one. I mean, I also thought it was weird, not just based on what he said, excuse me, but not only what he, not only what he said, rather, but the fact that WWE themselves then proceeded to put him on NXT. Why, Mr. Marceau, if this wasn't a storyline, which they have done this many, many times before, why not just put him on Raw or SmackDown and make it a three-man booth? I'm not saying we want three-man booths, but they were going to make NXT in two-man, or rather a three-man booth with Nick Joseph, Booker T, and Corey Graves. Why not just put him on SmackDown with Joe Tessitore and Wade Barrett, who are now currently covering SmackDown? That didn't really make a whole lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, unless they're really just going in the direction they only want two-man booth. I mean, I feel like sometimes the third-man booth, depending on who it was, could seem like a little overclawed. So maybe they were trying to go with a traditional, like, sports. There's usually only two people in the booth. I mean, occasionally you have, like, the official in the booth, or, I mean, they usually maybe have, like, an expert, but normally I would say most sport broadcasters, it is two people. So besides that, like I said, it still, I mean, I guess it could be a work, but, I mean, I would lean that it's not.
I mean, at least at this point, I would lean toward it not being a work, because I figured if it was, I mean, if it has been a work the entire time, they're doing a really good job of making it seem like it's not a work. And also, why now put him in the ring? He's been cleared for years now. Why now in 2025? And I wouldn't be complaining. I've been calling for Corey Graves' Rumble appearance, Rumble return for the last couple of years since we found out he was cleared back in 2022 or whatever it was. It's been a couple of years. And he hasn't even gotten physical. He hasn't had a one-off. And he was never like the biggest star. Like, this isn't a Big E situation where he's a former world champion, main roster talent. Corey Graves has not wrestled a match in WWE, or really at all to my knowledge, since 2014, since the spring of 2014, 11 years ago. And even if he were to return tomorrow to active competition, he would not be a world champion caliber competitor. And also, not only that, I would love to see this personally, but I think a Corey Graves-Pat McAfee feud would be cool. I just don't think it's realistic to assume that that would even be a WrestleMania match. With all the spots, or the finite amount of spots that they have, even with 2 nights, I don't think they would be making room on a WrestleMania card for 2 guys that are not on the active roster, and it's really just a commentator feud. Like, I could have seen that when they were doing the Raw versus SmackDown thing at Survivor Series, or maybe even at SummerSlam. But at WrestleMania, even now with it being 2 nights, I just don't see them going in that direction. Although it would be cool. Would you have any interest in a Pat McAfee Corey Graves matchup?
I mean, it's interesting. I think, like, with McAfee, his reach is so far that I think, like, it's not out of the question. Like, obviously we didn't want to see, like, Michael Cole and Lawler at the time, but I think with McAfee and the reach he does have, I think there is more of a chance they do him and Graves, just because he has such a huge audience that with 2 nights, I feel like you could put that on there. And, I mean, I guess it would suck for the main competitors, but, I mean, like I said, McAfee's so big, I feel like you could make it work.
Yeah, I definitely think it's something that could work. I feel like the match, I don't know, I mean, like I said, Corey Graves hasn't wrestled in 11 years, but the guy's an experienced veteran, so to speak, and I feel like it could be something that could work. I've been looking forward to something like that for years. And they've always teased tension between the two on television. I never really thought that was legit, and I don't think it was, up until now anyway. I don't know if he has a personal beef with Pat McAfee. It was just weird that he would make a comment like that, because honestly, even if Pat McAfee was around right now, really the person, if you think about it, because Pat McAfee's been in the company for years, and Corey Graves would always be on the opposite show. Unless they were on PLEs together, then they would be on the commentary team together. But it wasn't really Pat McAfee that took his job. It was Joe Tessitore. And it was weird. I mean, I guess Joe Tessitore is obviously more famous than Corey Graves. But I think everyone heard what he had to say, what Corey Graves tweeted, and they automatically assumed it was Pat McAfee. But I mean, there's a chance that he could have been talking about Joe Tessitore too, or both of them. And it's not like Corey Graves is feuding with Joe Tessitore. So I thought it was a weird comment to make.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it could be Tessitore, but I mean, he is like more play-by-play. It wasn't like it's not like Corey Graves was really doing play-by-play. He was more like the color commentator. So I would assume it was McAfee. But I mean, I guess you never know.
Yeah, you never know.
Or it
I
could
guess
be
we'll find
both.
out.
Like I said, it could be both. I mean, they both are outsiders, ESPN, kind of, like I said, on more of a national level than he was before.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. Hey, triple threat at WrestleMania, Joe Tessitore getting invited. Hey, special guest referee, Joe Tessitore, as special guest ref versus Pat McAfee versus Corey Graves. Hashtag book it.
Sounds terrible.
Daniel in the chat said, yeah, he was seen at the airport hours before headed back to Pittsburgh. That's when that was before the reports came out. I think that's when they started. Yeah, that's what we were talking about, I believe. Fernando actually mentioned in the chat, Corey Graves is working all of us, and he said Pat McAfee is lame. So he's got a bold opinion on that one. Ahmed had mentioned, I think him, Joe, and Wade would fit perfectly. Listen, I'm not a three-man booth fan, but if they were to make it a three-man booth, I mean, it's better than not using Corey Graves at all. And it's better than putting Corey Graves on NXT, which would absolutely be a demotion. I think he would be much better off in a three-man booth, which they've done before. They had a three-man booth when fucking, what's his name? Honestly, Kevin Patrick was there like a year or two ago. There was a three-man booth at that point, so I don't really see why this would be any different. No, Richie, we're not doing a 3-hour stream, but I appreciate the support. And someone else said Pat McAfee versus Corey Graves. D. I don't know if they wanted to see it. I don't know what that chat was supposed to mean. But hey, listen, like I said, if it's not a work already, which at this point I don't think it is it something they could turn into a work? Yes. Is it realistic to assume they could give them a spot at WrestleMania? No. I mean, they could. I just honestly don't really see that happening personally, but I guess we'll find out in due time. If he's not around for a while, then now you know why. Could he show up in the Rumble, perhaps? Maybe, but like I said, I don't know. Honestly, I don't even know if I don't know if enough people follow the Corey Graves drama and whatnot for that to be a big deal in the Rumble. They might as well just, like, people might not give a shit in Indianapolis. I don't know how many people are actually following this whole Corey Graves drama thing, and if it's just something that, like, us fans are talking about online, and most people don't really even give a shit. I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean, it's in Indianapolis. That's where McAfee's from.
True.
Corey Graves comes out, like maybe gets thrown on the Rumble, and McAfee like teases him, and then he just jumps the table and just beats the shit out of him. I mean, that'd get heat right away. He's in McAfee's hometown.
Well, now because you said that, I forgot they were in Pat McAfee's hometown. Now I actually want to see that, and I'm going to be disappointed when it doesn't happen, Mr. Marceau. That's what happens when you throw situations out there like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a possibility with it being in Indianapolis. He could, like, turn, like I said, this work into something.
Yeah, no, I agree. You could totally turn it into something for the show. Daniel also mentioned Pat was kind of annoying me on Monday, made me miss Corey, LOL. Yeah, Pat is very over the top. Are you one of those fans, Mr. Marceau, that has turned on Pat McAfee? I still enjoy his enthusiasm. He can be a lot, he can be a lot sometimes. He can be very much. But, I think overall, I think he does a good job. He obviously has a passion for it, and I would take that energy over the likes of Adnan Virk, and I like Kevin Patrick, no disrespect to him, but as a commentator, he wasn't really cut out for that specifically, at least in WWE. But I'll take Pat McAfee over guys like that any day of the week. So what's your current assessment of Pat McAfee's commentary on Monday nights?
Yeah, I like McAfee. I mean, I don't think he, like you said, I think he can be a little dramatic at certain points, but, I mean, there's certain calls that I like. I mean, whenever Sheamus comes out, I love the fight night, baby. I mean, it gets me going every time. When he's eating all over himself for Jay, I think, like I said, some of it's a little much, but I think he does more positive than negative. So, I mean, to me, that's my thought, at least.
Yeah, no, I agree. Hopefully they can, channel this and turn it into a positive. I'm not optimistic they will, but I still enjoy Pat McAfee's commentary as well. The eating stuff can be a little much, but personally, I'm never annoyed by it. I have not been annoyed by it, but that's just me personally. I know a lot of other people don't feel the same way, but like I said, it's better than what we used to get from announcers back in the day. If it turns into JBL 2.0 from the Authority era, when you're fucking shitting all over, the baby faces and just acting annoying. If Vince McMahon was back in Pat McAfee's ear, it might be a different story. But currently I don't really think it's that much of an issue. They just let him go out there and do his own thing. And yeah, Ahmed said in the chat, him doing the yeet thing is a bit too much. I mean, hey, it is what it is. I enjoy it personally. Mr. Marceau said the same thing, so I get it. It may not be your cup of tea. That's totally fine, but it does hype up the crowd. I'll give you that much. On the dirt sheet front, the other big topic I wanted to talk to you about here today, Mr. Marceau, is Malakai Black. Maybe not done with AEW, but clearly on his way out. I mean, you could say this about any number of people. I feel like it's deja vu, Groundhog Day, whatever you want to call it, as far as the amount of people that we put, like, insert X name here, and it's the same discussion as far as whether it be Miro or Ricky Starks or the Lucha Bros, Penta now being in WWE. Several other people that clearly seem checked out of AEW and want to see the grass is greener on the other side. Malakai Black might be the latest name to do that. Now, there's been a lot of rumors for a long time now about Malakai Black's status with AEW. He debuted 4 years ago in 2021, and about a year later when Triple H first took over WWE's creative direction, there was that report. Not even a report. Tony Khan outright said, I think on Busted Open Radio or something like that, oh yeah, I've got guys like Malakai Black and Adam Cole signed until 2027. They signed 5-year deals, which I don't know why the fuck you would sign a 5-year deal in any company, honestly, just given the landscape. That just seems stupid to me. But either they granted him or will grant him an early release, or it wasn't exactly 5 years. It could have been 3.5 or 4. We have no idea. The latest report, I think that came out last night, I think from either Fightful or PW Insider, again, I forget the exact source, they had said that if he's supposed to be a free agent later in the year, he could be back, or he could be gone from AEW before then. But either way, do not expect him back on TV before he leaves, which is kind of why they didn't really write him out. His last match was a Full Gear and a World Tag Team title match and a Fatal 4-Way Tag Team match. Oh, what a way to write someone out. But they did kind of acknowledge it last week on Dynamite. Will Ospreay fought Buddy Matthews. And after the match, he had told Buddy, Will Ospreay did, oh, you don't really need the House of Black anymore. And then Adam Copeland, I'm not fucking calling him a Cope, that name sucks. Adam Copeland told Brody King, take the reins and run with it, like kind of saying you don't really need the House of Black either. So maybe they'll stick the House of Black together without Malakai Black, but it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to keep the House of Black if Malakai Black, whose last name they use for the group, isn't fucking there. That's kind of stupid. But a lot of talk going on right now about the former Aleister Black, Mr. Marceau, and his potential return to WWE. So break this down for me, and we'll talk about where they went wrong, both companies, really. But is this something you want to see, and are you confident that he might actually be out of AEW this time?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's had a lot of this throughout the last couple of years with AEW. There's like rumors that he's going to be leaving or writing him off, and then he's on Instagram or on social media like, nope, I'm still here, like I'm not leaving, blah blah blah. But I mean, it seems like this might be his last hurrah there. It doesn't seem like he'll probably be back on TV, and I mean, it is what it is. I guess at this point, if I was them, I would kind of move away from the House of Black stuff. I'd kind of put Buddy on his own and Brody. I mean, I guess you could put Julia maybe with one of them, but I think you can just disband the group at this point. There's no real point of having a House of Black if the Black's not there. So, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I think he probably will go back to WWE. I don't know how successful he'll be. I mean, his most successful part with the company was when he was in NXT with Triple H at the helm. So maybe that entices him to come back, and he knows that he was used well with Triple H, and most likely it would be happening again. But, I mean, all in all, I think it'd be nice for him to come back, but I don't think it's 100% necessary. I mean, they have a lot of guys now that they can focus on. I don't think they need to put all these other people on the back burner for an Aleister Black return, but I think for him, I think he'd feel comfortable coming back just because he was used so well under Triple H and NXT.
I mean, we'll talk about the Penta situation in a little bit, but he's a prime example of someone that was underutilized there in AEW towards the end. He came over to WWE and in one night felt like an absolute superstar. But who did that come at the expense of? Chad Gable, who is someone that we've talked about a lot. I've just kind of given up on the idea of them actually pushing him on his own. I know they gave him that serious singles push for 2 months last year over the Intercontinental Championship. He never won it. They gave him a group, which is nice, but it's essentially the same thing as American Alpha, just as heels. And I like the Creeds, I like Ivy Nile, but I don't really see them getting beyond a certain level if they don't commit to pushing him in that role. My point is, the more people that you bring in from the other company, you don't want to bring in the entire AEW roster, because I see a lot of things from a lot of fans like, they're not doing anything with Adam Page, put him in WWE. Jay White made the mistake of going to, AEW over WWE last year, which I feel like he kind of had to, just because Vince was back in WWE at that point. There was no guarantee how he would be used in WWE. He's young enough to where he could always go there down the road. Will Ospreay, same thing. And you don't have to go to WWE, but I do feel like any of these guys, MJF included, could do very well in the WWE system at some point down the road. But yeah, I totally think in the case of Malakai Black, he is someone that if you were to put him back in the WWE system right now, with Triple H in charge, I'm not saying he's guaranteed to be a world champion, but PW Torch was putting out there earlier today that there's a lot of influential people in the company currently that see him as a top singles act in that company. Would they actually push him in that direction? I can't say that they would. There's no guarantee of that. Andrade didn't come back and win a world championship, but at the same time, I see Alistair, Malakai, whatever you want to call him, as more of a singles world champion caliber performer over someone like an Andrade anyway. But I think he would have a chance, right? I mean, you mentioned that he would have a chance in WWE, but there's also an equal amount of chance, we have to acknowledge this, that they could bring him back or bring him back into the company, Aleister Black that is, and he could just get lost in the shuffle. I mean, there's a very realistic chance of that happening too.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that's with anyone. Depending on who it is, especially when it's like a returning face. I mean, with Andrade example, I mean, came back last year. I mean, he was on WrestleMania. He was kind of doing the whole LWO, Rey Mysterio, Dominic stuff. Kind of gone on SmackDown. He's had a lot of great matches. I just feel like they really haven't got his footing yet. I think looking back at it, he probably should have been the one to take the belt off LA Knight. I mean, Shinsuke, to me, at this point, hasn't really done too much to deserve that. But, I mean, with Andrade, I mean, he's had a lot of great matches. That's his character work's kind of the same as before. I guess that's what it is. He just feels like someone that's having really good matches, but they just really haven't pushed him to that next level. I'm not sure if there's something else down the line. So I guess the positive, he has good matches. So I think that can help in this fan affair, but they kind of have to work on his character a little bit more. And I think maybe that's where the disconnect is. But all in all, he still is having good matches every week. He just hasn't really won the big one yet, or something to hang his hat on.
Yeah, no, Andrade would have been absolutely the perfect person to be LA Knight for the United States Championship. I love the presentation of Nakamura, and I feel like that's kind of the biggest thing salvaging him right now, because the in-ring stuff is fine. He has good matches. They had a good match on SmackDown, Nakamura and Andrade did a couple of weeks ago. But we've seen this before. We've seen him with the United States Championship. He's been not overexposed, but it's Nakamura. Like, he's been there for so long. If Aleister Black never left, I mean, he would have gotten fired anyway. It's not like he left on his own. He got fired, so he didn't really have a choice. But he probably would be in the same spot as Nakamura, as someone that we've seen be pushed before. And not even really that, because Aleister Black, at least Shinsuke, to his credit, he won a couple mid-card belts, tag team titles, Royal Rumble. Aleister, at least on the main roster, never won shit. He was around for maybe 2 years. I think he debuted early 2019 with Ricochet. They had a good thing going. They broke them up, which was fine, because Aleister was more of a single star anyway. Then they were doing the whole fight me in that room thing, when he was in the fucking room and he wanted someone to come fight him, and then it went nowhere for months before then Claudio Cesaro finally answered the call, and they had a couple good matches. But again, nothing. I think the only time that it looked like Aleister might actually become something on the Raw roster was when Paul Heyman was in charge. And that was like for only a couple months. He was really officially in charge for a year, but it kind of only really felt like he had actual creative control for a couple of months there. And him and Buddy Matthews actually had a series of great matches, and it kind of felt like he was getting over. Then they pulled the rug right from underneath Aleister Black, and they put the fucking eye patch on him, turned him heel. It was god-awful. Then he was off TV for months, fired his wife, the company did. They brought him back, and then immediately fired him 2 weeks later. He came back and attacked Big E for a feud, I think over the Intercontinental Championship. And then within weeks of that happening and them turning him heel, he got fired by the company. It was just completely ridiculous. So I think he's a guy that could do well, I think, back in WWE. But before we go any further, do you want to mention this? Let's see. Daniel said in the chat, it was funny to see Pat McAfee damn near wet himself when Hogan came out, on orders, I'm sure, only to make fun of him on his show the next day. Yeah, that is kind of funny. Richie also said that 5-year deal better have been for a lot of moolah. Is that a Peacock sweatshirt? Yes, it is. I got this from Peacock a couple of years ago, and they moved to Peacock, so that's why I'm wearing it. Fernando said, put Zelina with Aleister Black. She's doing nothing with the LWO. I mean, I'm all in favor of trying something with Charlotte and Andrade. I don't know how much on-screen chemistry they would have, but I think Charlotte and Andrade would be interesting. Would you put Zelina Vega with Aleister Black? I mean, I think Zelina and the LWO is a good fit. They're not really doing shit with her on TV currently, but they just have a lot of women. But that is something I think I could see both of them pulling for just to try it out. You know, kind of put her in the Julia Hart role of what she had in the House of Black in AEW. Would you be in favor of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you change her character up a little bit, I think you could get there. I mean, I think she is someone that's done very well, kind of adapting to different things. So I think she's good in her role as well. So, I mean, I think she's great with the LWO. Like you said, she's not really doing a ton, but I think she fits the group well. I feel like she fits in, and even she was like Andrade's manager, she did good. I think she's very diverse. So I think given the right circumstances, I think she could fit right in.
Yeah, I think she could be a good fit if they booked it properly. And, you know, she was with Andrade, yeah, they did work extremely well together. And I think her and Aleister, just being a married couple, I think would work even better together on TV than Charlotte presumably would with Andrade, just in my opinion. But Daniel said that push they gave Gable came conveniently as his contract was expiring. Yeah, that was kind of convenient how that worked out, right? They obviously did that on purpose. Dylan, actually, you know Dylan's in the chat here. He said, how's it going? So he says hi to Mr. Marceau as well. Ahmed mentioned, I think Gable on SmackDown might be the better move with him as U.S. champion, and Ivy Nile would be great. Well, I mean, you can't forget about the Creeds, but I mean, I know I'm going to get back to Aleister Black in a second, but do you have any optimism about Chad Gable going to SmackDown and winning the United States Championship? I think that'd be the perfect fit, but now if they're moving the Y6 to SmackDown, I don't know why you would move American Made over there, too, because that kind of runs the risk of revisiting that feud, and I don't think anyone really wants to see that. And they had a fine feud, but there's no real reason to go back to it. So, any chance you see Chad Gable going to SmackDown and winning the Star Spangled Prize, or is there really any hope of that just completely gone at this point?
Yeah, when they announced that the Y6 were going there, that was my first thought. I was like, well, what are you going to do with Gable now? But, I mean, it's still possible. I mean, I think you don't have to run that back. I mean, we just saw it on Raw. You can still move them to SmackDown and don't have any interaction. But I mean, with the work that he did alone on Raw in that match, I mean, he does deserve something. I mean, he is a great worker, and I feel like that kind of gets passed by with like kind of the more comedy gimmick. But I mean, Gable can work his ass off with anyone. I feel like he made Penta look great, and I mean, he deserves some kind of credit there, and I think some kind of push or run. I mean, he's great, and he should be compensated correctly.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, the fact that he just re-signed kind of tells you that, he's not going anywhere anytime soon. I don't even think, though. I mean, I said this the other day, I think, when I was doing hashtag. But even if Chad were to leave and go to AEW, I have no fucking, no impression, no feeling, no vibe that if he went to AEW when his contract expired last year, that he would be any better off than he is currently. He probably would have been on Rampage up until they canceled it. Ricochet's getting somewhat of a push now, which is nice, but I just at this point it's just hard to care, and until they demonstrate that they could use him properly. Alexis called him Shinsuke Nakamura. I get it. Nakamura.
Oh, Jesus. Stop.
Listen, let me ask you this though. I mean, we were talking about Aleister. We'll get back to that here. Nakamura, with this current entrance, I don't really give a shit about the Nakamura push, because as soon as he came out with that entrance, it's like, it's amazing. Alexis was like, oh yeah, this is incredible. I agree, but it's at the same time, it's still Shinsuke Nakamura as United States champion. And as soon as this run is over, you're probably not going to fucking see him again. I think heel Nakamura is great, but I'd rather see them use this time to push people like Andrade, like Chad Gable, or an Aleister Black, or a Penta, if Aleister Black comes in or whatever. Aleister Black, I think, talking about aura and whatnot, I think he's a guy that would fare better in WWE with Triple H in charge, because I think, honestly, like, his in-ring work is great. You talked about the character for Andrade. They can kind of fine-tweak the Andrade character. It's very similar to Karrion Kross. So, I mean, they would have to put them on separate brands. I don't know if that would kind of be a boring feud, I think. But if you bring in Aleister Black, okay, Don't you think he could just get over on his presentation alone, as long as they give him the CFO song again? I don't know if they can. I don't know if they would. I'm not optimistic over that, but I think there's a chance that just based on his presentation alone, because it worked in NXT, I think there's a chance that it could work again in 2025 on the main roster.
I think with like his presentation alone, he can get over. And I mean, I think Alexis is just so obsessed with Shinsuke in the chat. I'm looking at it right now. Just get over Shinsuke. I mean, he's still Shinsuke at the end of the day. Been there, done that. Move on. I mean, Jesus Christ. But with Alistair, like I said, if they just brought back the same kind of presentation he had in NXT, I feel like it would work. I mean, the aura, like I said, his character alone, I feel like is very gravitational. It kind of pulls you in. So, I mean, I think his in-ring work's good enough too. And he's gone away. I think the famous saying of "How can I miss you if you don't go away?" That's where I'm with Shinsuke at this point. Like, he's been around for fucking over a decade, doing the same shtick. I mean, now he has black marker on his face and wears a samurai helmet. But guess what? He wrestles just like Shinsuke does. So it is what it is. And yeah.
I love the black marker comment because that's so true. Listen, I think he looks great, but at the end of the day, it's still Shinsuke Nakamura. You could put what's the expression? You could put a lipstick on a pig.
It's like the Viking Raiders. Like they put fucking marker on their face, their heels. Now they don't have it. They're still the Viking Raiders at the end of the day. The same presentation, and I still don't care.
I care about them a little bit more because they never really got a fair shake on the main roster. To be fair, Nakamura has. I mean, Nakamura was competing for the fucking world championship. I mean, come on. I mean, we've been here and done that. I'd rather see other people get that spot. Richie mentioned a little bit earlier, he said there's no reason why Andrade or Carmelo should not be or shouldn't have been United States champion already. Bring back Nakamura after the fact and build them up to dethrone either one of them rather, instead of LA Knight. And I completely disagree. And he also said no disrespect to Nakamura by any means. Those two guys were really busting their ass for a while. Yeah, I mean, Carmelo and Andrade, going off of that, you talked about it before, Mr. Marceau, but they had that amazing series of matches. And then what happened? Nothing. Andrade's not even really on the show right now. He was fed to Nakamura. And then Carmelo Hayes is currently feuding with Braun Strowman. I mean, that's fine. I mean, I think Braun's sick. He had the flu or something. He lost a lot of weight, I heard. Hopefully he's doing better. But, I mean, come on, dude. I mean, why not capitalize on that and give one of them the United States Championship? I know you already said that, but it's like, just thinking about it now, Nakamura wasn't even on the fucking show. It just makes no sense to bring back him and put the belt on him when you could be building around these other guys that could benefit from a run with that championship instead of this other guy that's already held it at least 2 or 3 other times.
No, and then like you said, they also like built it up to like, oh, okay, maybe the winner of this will get the shot at LA Knight and finally beat him. Shinsuke wasn't even on TV, wasn't even a thought. I'm like, I don't even know where Shinsuke is, don't care. Comes back after they both of them lose to LA Knight. 2 weeks later, he wins the belt, and everyone's like, why? And
yeah, pretty much.
The saying you were looking for is you can put lipstick on a pig, but at the end of the day, it's still a pig.
Yes.
And that's what Shinsuke. Like I said, it says making superficial or cosmic changes to a product in effort to disguise its fundamental failings. So putting mark on Shinsuke's face doesn't hide the fact that he's still Shinsuke and he's still doing the same shtick.
Yep, that's the best way to put it, absolutely. Daniel had mentioned Gable versus Braun Breaker for the IC title would cook. Yeah, it absolutely would. I mean, they're both...
That's pretty good.
You know, I mean, Braun's basically a tweener at this point, so that's something we could see, right?
Yeah, no, I'm down for that.
I mean, we have to see if Braun Breaker escapes Saturday night's main event, still the champion. We'll get to that in a couple minutes. I'll move away from these comments in a second. I'm just reading what's here. Alexa said my mom was in here at one point. Well, happy to Mama DeGiacomo. Thank you for joining us on the show with Mr. Marceau and I appreciate it if you're still listening. Richie said, screw it, Chad Gable for Mr. Money in the Bank 2025. That is absolutely not happening. I would love to see it. I don't have any delusion that Chad Gable is going to be Mr. Money in the Bank. Would you say the same, Mr. Marceau?
I wouldn't bet my life savings on it.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's going to happen. But hey, anything can happen, I suppose. Mello, too, deserves a push. I agree. Thank you, Ahmed. Alexa saying, RJ, you know it's true about Nakamura. Yeah, guess what? He has aura, but after you get to a certain point, we just don't care. Dylan said, I would have Zelina manage Alistair. That could be interesting. Like I said, I think that would be interesting, too. RJ said the same. Dylan also said they killed Chad Gable's momentum after the Wyatt Six buried American Made. No, they killed his momentum. I agree. That just put the dirt on top of the pile. Where they really buried him was when they had him lose to Sami Zayn, 5 or 6 times the Intercontinental Championship on the line. I just don't get over the fact they had him lose to Zayn 4 or 5 times, and then Braun Breaker gets a shot. I mean, Braun lost in his first shot too, but then he won the belt. I mean, Braun Breaker doesn't need the championship right now. I think Braun can get over on his own. It's just funny to me that they never even bothered to give him the championship once. Not even a single time. It's like, come on, dude, whatever. And then Richie also said, thoughts on Karrion Kross mentioning on Busted Open Radio that he wants to work with CM Punk. I mean, he can want to work with CM Punk. Is he going to work with CM Punk? Unless it's for a one-off match on Raw where he loses in 6 minutes, then probably not. And I'm saying this, I'm just being realistic here, not to be negative. And I like Karrion Kross a lot. I love Punk, obviously. As a feud that could work, Karrion Kross there's a lot more people I think people would want to see Punk work with at this point. Before Karrion Kross, I mean, any roster would rather see CM Punk work with top Raw or SmackDown guys. But that's just my opinion. What about you, Mr. Marceau? Is that something you could see happening at some point?
I hope not. I mean, I guess, like you said, I mean, I think back in the day, Tiger Ali Singh wanted to work with The Rock, too, but, I mean, it's just not going to happen. So, I mean, everyone obviously wants to work with the top guys. I mean, it'd be silly not to say so, but I'm all set with the Karrion and CM Punk feud match. Like I said, it's a throwaway at a house show, maybe, but I'm all set.
I would want to see it, but I can't be, I can't pretend like it's something that I feel like would actually happen. I just don't feel like that would actually happen. So, I mean, I don't know. If they can push Karrion Kross, they were having him feud with the Wyatt Six, and then they moved the Wyatt Six to SmackDown, so it is what it is. Just Rome said Chad Gable's going to be all right, and Richie also said they killed his momentum when Uncle Howdy shot Bro in the head in Gorilla. Yeah, no, exactly. And he was good working with anyone he can get his momentum started with any match. Yeah, sure, but if he just continues to fucking lose, then it's impossible to care about the guy. I don't know when this turned into a Chad Gable rant, but I'm just telling you how it is. I mean, the guy he's just a loser. Yeah, Braun lost 34 pounds. Yeah, I know, it was crazy. All right, Mr. Marceau, so let's move on from that. Let's talk about Penta real quick from Monday Night Raw. Not even real quick, but let's delve into this. His amazing debut on Raw. We all knew it was coming, aside from Alexis, that for some reason she had no idea, which was good. It made it more of a surprise. But everyone else knew this was coming. It was it was a great debut on Monday. Got a great reaction in San Jose. We were talking a little bit about it before we hit live here, about how if this was anywhere else and he did the same promo in Spanish, the crowd would probably sit on their hands and chant. You know what they would have done if they were anywhere else? They would have just been stupid and chanted what? They would have chanted what after his entire promo, I guarantee it, because that's what WWE crowds do, especially in certain markets. But thankfully they were in San Jose. They had something of, obviously they're in San Jose, it's California, a little bit of a Hispanic audience there, which is great. They reacted to this like he was a big star. They clearly, maybe not everyone in the audience, but a lot of people there, or a decent amount anyway, understood what he was saying. And he spoke some of it in English. I didn't mind his English. He spoke in English. He sounded good. Clearly, he was very passionate to be there. It was a great reaction. And the match itself, like we talked about before with Chad Gable, was awesome. I thought this was as they put in the title of this video, the perfect debut for a former AEW star. And not only that, too, but it was surreal, and I don't really feel like this is getting talked about enough. We've seen Cody Rhodes come into WWE. We've seen Punk come back to WWE. Even Jade Cargill. But with Cody Rhodes, he was there on day one with AEW. Obviously, he built the fucking company. But, he was in WWE before. Okay, we get that. And then he had his AEW presentation in WWE, 10 times better than it was in AEW. But he was already in WWE. CM Punk, obviously, already in WWE. Jade Cargill was an AEW homegrown talent, but she debuted in that during the COVID era, as we all know, in the Shaq feud in late 2020, early 2021. The Lucha Bros were there with AEW from day one, and were never in WWE. So I feel like that's a pretty big deal. And already they're treating him like a star. Apparently the merch numbers are doing well right out of the gate. It was just an amazing debut, I feel like. As someone, and I know you as well, we both were introduced with him, not in AEW, not even in TNA or AAA, but in Lucha Underground, a promotion that doesn't even fucking exist anymore. And then he comes in and has, holy shit, oh, okay, I'll get to that in a second. We got a big super chat here, that's fucking nuts. But with Penta, I just want to get your thoughts on the debut here, Mr. Marceau. As far as how you think it went off and how he came off as a star right out of the gate.
No, I mean, I can't gloss over the fact. I mean, Alexis, Stevie Wonder blindfolded in the basement saw it coming. I mean, how do you not know it was Penta? He showed his face on TV. I mean,
She didn't think it was him.
His thing.
Yeah, I know.
Michael Cole, and he says, I mean, come on, Jesus. Okay, back to the match. I thought, like I said, it came out great. They released the merch before it even came out. It was earlier in the day, so I guess if you were near a computer, you could have saw that too. But I feel they treated him like a star. They put him in with Gable, and I feel like Gable sold his ass off and really helped put him over. I mean, Penta was selling, which you probably have never seen before because it never really happened before when he was in AEW. But I think the selling helped. I mean, he got the babyface comeback. I thought it was great. I thought he looked good. It kind of showed that you don't have to drop people on his head for a year and kick out every move. I feel like everyone was all over the near falls and him selling the flag, and I thought it was done really well. And I thought it was, like I said, perfect environment to put him in front of a larger Hispanic crowd. I think they ate it up. The daughter bawling her eyes out. No, Alexis, it was not a plan. It was definitely his daughter. That was great as well. I mean, I thought everything was done what it needed to be done, and luckily it was not in Kansas City or some random town. They probably would have wanted him, but I think everything was done perfectly.
I thought it was done perfectly. And not only that, too, but it felt like Penta from AEW. He wasn't Penta El Zero Miedo. That's kind of a mouthful. They just called him Penta, which is totally fine. For those that are unaware, which is it's probably well established at this point, I think Triple H owns Pentagon Jr., the name, the ring name. They have fucking rights to that. So he moved on from that years ago. So he hasn't been Pentagon Jr. in a long time. I mean, maybe in WWE, if they turn him heel, he can be Penta Dark. You know, possible that they could do that because it's technically not Pentagon Junior Dark or whatever, Pentagon Dark. I think Penta Dark could work as well. But yeah, no, it felt like the AEW Penta in there. And he was doing the same moves. He wasn't doing the package pile driver. I mean, Kevin Owens pulled that out once at Saturday night's main event, and he hasn't hit it since, and I feel like that was a one-off. He's not doing that move, but he did hit a destroyer. He did hit the Penta driver, and that's what he won with. Hit the arm breaker. I popped big for the fucking arm breaker. Listen, I cannot stress this enough. For anyone that did not watch Lucha Underground, to go find it online, specifically the first season. I won't reveal certain stuff here. I know it's a 10-year-old show, but it's just so fucking good. And his specific character arc on that show was amazing. Breaking people's arms. It felt like a big deal. And the selling that he did in this match, like you said, I thought he was hurt. Like we talked about Alexis, how could she not know Penta was debuting? I thought he was actually hurt. I was a mark. I bought into it too.
What a mark.
I did. I thought he was actually hurt. We both said. I mean, obviously she bought into it. She's super gullible, but we go, oh my God, I hope he's not. This is just turning into a complete burial here. We both said, I'm like, man, I hope he didn't get hurt in his debut. That would suck, but obviously he's fine. Man, yeah, no, I don't think he's seen selling like that since his Lucha days or TNA or something. He wasn't doing any of that shit in AEW. He would fit. Remember, was it him and Orange? I forgot who it was. There was a match where him and Orange Cassidy, or Orange Cassidy and someone else, were hitting Canadian destroyers like back to back.
I think it was him and Pentagon, I think.
What a fucking like turnaround. Like, yeah, they hit like, I think they hit like each other with 5 fucking destroyers in a row. Like, it was crazy. I asked you this question about a year ago, Mr. Marceau, when the initial report came out last spring or whatever. Penta could be free later this year. And he was. WWE picked him up. And I honestly feel like, I don't want to say it's a good thing that Penta's still in prison. I'm sorry, under contract, AEW. I feel like it's a positive just because they can now use Penta on his own for right now. Whereas if Penta, or rather if Phoenix was free too, if Phoenix came in, then they would be a tag team, which is awesome. But I feel like there is something to explore there with Penta. He's not the best wrestler on the roster, but his physical charisma alone, and just that aura, to go back to that word, I feel like he has it in spades. So I'm all for this. But like I said, the question I asked you a year ago, Mr. Marceau, was, what is his ceiling in WWE? And we weren't really sure. We were like, I'd have to go back and listen to it, but I think we weren't really overly optimistic. We probably thought, they might push him in as a mid-carder, and he might still be a mid-carder, but we didn't expect him to have the build-up that he did with the vignettes, and now the merch. They're selling masks for $70, which I'm sure people are going to, buy those off the shelves. They were in AEW for 5 or 6 years. They never sold a single fucking Penta mask. I mean, how does that even happen? That's just, I just don't get that at all. But he already felt like a star on day one. With his lack of, English speaking promos, and he did on Monday, but he doesn't speak English as well as some other Hispanic talent they've had in the company, like a Santos Escobar and people like that. But how far do you think he can realistically get in WWE? Penta, that is.
I mean, I think mid-card. I would still stick with mid-card. I mean, I think I wouldn't want to say world championship. I don't want to sound like an idiot, so I'll stick with mid card. I mean, I think it's good that they brought him in. I mean, not without Phoenix because obviously he couldn't leave, but I think it works well for them if they push him like pretty good. He's really over, and then at the end of the year when Phoenix is available, you bring him in. So you already have a top guy who brings his brother in. You're just, I mean, just perception is. There's a saying, I don't know what it is, but something with perception. You see Penta as a big star, his brother comes in, then you think, oh, he must be a big star too, and then you kind of either put them together or you kind of split them up. But I think pushing Penta now, make him a big star, will only help Phoenix come in and make him seem like a bigger deal.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I feel like if we see Penta push now as a top star, if Phoenix comes in, like you said, it's going to feel like a big deal to people that may not know who he is. And he's also a better wrestler than Penta is as well. So I feel like they'll complement each other really well as they did in WWE, or rather in AEW. So that's a great point. Hopefully they can push him. I don't know if he's going to be a world champion, but if he continues to stay over, I still love your idea of a Penta Rey Mysterio match at Mania. I don't know how realistic it is, but I think we can say, as we've said many times before, do not put this man in the LWO. I cannot stress that enough. Do not have him out there making the fucking entrance with them. He's way cooler than those guys, and I like the LWO. He should be out there destroying the LWO. And maybe not right now, but when he hit that Cero Miedo on Monday, that crowd went fucking nuts. So I would ride this wave for as long as you possibly can. And yeah, I thought it was a great debut. But some chat questions or chat comments here. Still can't believe that I gaslit Alexis to keep kayfabe. Hey, listen, you got to do what you got to do. I did gaslight her. Alexis mentioned that as well. I did gaslight you to keep Penta's debut a surprise. I mean, the fact that she still bought into it was amazing. So that's a win on my part. And then Richie also said having Penta debut in front of a large Hispanic audience was a great move. I agree. People would have ruined it with the what chance. That would have been fucking awful. Imagine if he debuted in like Corpus Christi, Texas, or some bullshit. They definitely would have ruined it with the fucking what chance and whatnot. Penta and Chad Gable cooked. Still bizarre seeing that in WWE. That was crazy. The Shaq table bomb still pops me to this day. Hey, listen, Shaq is still somewhere after disappearing from that ambulance. We never got a follow up on that, Mr. Marceau. Shaq is still out there undefeated in AEW.
He's still at the local Jacksonville Medical Center. I mean, we haven't. I assume. I mean, he ran out of the ambulance. Nothing ever came out of that. But yeah, I mean,
yeah.
I guess my other question on the follow up with Penn, do we know when Phoenix is going to be available? Any idea? Like, there's any breadcrumbs on like a potential or?
Maybe later this year is all I know. That could be what, December? We don't know. That could be anything.
I mean, I think it'd be great. I mean, obviously they can't help this, but I mean, if he did turn him heel, like, I feel like it would be great to have, like, do a one-on-one at Mania. Obviously, it doesn't seem like that's in the cards, but, like, you could turn Penta heel, and then, like, who's the one to save the day? It could be his brother. But it doesn't seem like that's happening, so.
Yeah, probably not happening. But, hey, listen, we could dream, right?
Yeah.
We can dream.
Sounds good.
Yeah, there was just other comments about that. Just a one-off Melo feud beats Cena. Give me Melo versus Cena. Melo did say that he wants to bring the Spinner U.S. Championship, and Melo told Cena that this isn't your championship. Yeah, I mean, any feud like that I feel like would be cool. Ringside Logic, though, I overread your question. Thank you, first of all, for sending that. Second of all, I'm going back to it because that's a pretty big deal. That was just announced a second ago. That's going to be our next talking point in a second. I'm just reading everything else before I get to that. Dylan said you could tell he was very happy to be wrestling there. Yeah, exactly. Do you think he was wrestling, or he was happy, Mr. Marceau Penta was, to be wrestling in front of an actual crowd that had fans behind the hard cam?
I mean, I think he was happy. His brother probably wasn't because he saw what they made, how good of a star they made his brother and how great he came off. And it was like, yeah, I'm going to be sitting on ice for a few more months now, and there's no chance I'm fucking leaving anytime soon. So I think he was happy. Yeah. His brother was probably like, shit, I'm happy for him, but damn, I'm stuck here, and yeah.
Doing nothing. And not only that, too, I mean, I can't imagine why Penta would go to WWE when he could have been on Dynamite on Wednesday wrestling in front of, let me check my notes, 1,500 people in a fucking local armory.
I mean, like I said, I honestly just feel bad for Phoenix. I mean, I feel like it is what it is, and they're kind of taking against him, but, like, I don't know, some of them were just stupid bumps they made him take, so.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, I feel bad for him. At least, I guess the positive is that he is significantly younger than Pentagon. So, like, yeah, he might be coming in a little bit later, but he is 5 years younger than Penta. So, I mean, he still has some longevity, and I think done right, he can be, like, they can push him right, I think he could be a big star or a bigger star for them for a few next couple of years. So at least it's not Penta, the one that's being held back, because he's almost 40 years old at this point. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not like he has a long longevity left. So yeah, I mean, we'll see.
Yeah, like you said, not a whole lot of longevity there, but milk it for as long as you can. Make that merch money. Get over. He got over in 1 week, and we'll see if he's over next week when they're in, I think, Houston or Dallas. They're in Texas next week. I don't know where.
If they're in Houston, he'll be over. I mean,
Yeah.
that's another Hispanic Latino market he'll be doing.
Totally
well.
agree. Daniel said, how would you feel if they put Penta in the chamber just to keep him feeling like a big deal? I could see that. I could see Penta in the chamber. I mean, he obviously wouldn't win. Well, it depends. What's the chamber? Is it for a shot at like Cody Rhodes or like the World Heavyweight Championship? Like obviously a couple of years ago it was for the United States Championship. Listen, I would keep this wave going. I would not go the Andrade route of what they did last year. I don't know what the fuck happened there, but like he was in the Rumble and then he was off TV for a while. They put him in vignettes and then he was on TV. He wasn't on TV. He didn't wrestle until like fucking March. No. You just put him right out there immediately as a star. Have him rack up wins. Give him his first feud soon. Don't just have him out there racking up wins doing nothing. Give him direction going into Mania. You debuted him now for a reason. Give him a match at WrestleMania. And don't have it be like him in the LWO versus like the New Day. Like, no. Just have him out there fucking breaking arms of the New Day or Rey Mysterio. I just feel like that'd be silly. But how would you feel, Mr. Marceau, about Penta being in the Elimination Chamber?
Depending on what it's going for, I wouldn't hate it. I mean, like you said, it depends on what's on the line here, but I don't hate it.
I would not hate it either. Richie also said, what's more bizarre, Penta in WWE or seeing Penta sell moves? That's a good question. I think more of the latter,
Penta
honestly.
selling moves is more a shock. I just watched that Orange and Pentagon clip. I almost had a stroke laughing.
I can't believe they did that. Hashtag gaslight GSM. Yeah, listen, I gaslit her. I gotta keep a kayfabe. That's just how it works. Ahmed said, LWO kills superstars momentum. Ask Dragon Lee how he turned out. Yeah, no, listen, I agree. I like the LWO, but like they put Dragon Lee in there just to give him something to do, and it really gave him nothing to do. That made no sense. Mike said, take it easy on Alexis, RJ. Well, he was talking to, I think, both of us, but we're
I think
bearing.
he's talking to you. I mean, we're best friends. I don't think there's no issue on my end. If that's the case, mea culpa. Everything I said, I take back.
Good old Mike. Richie said, biggest mysteries. Where is Shaq and who threw the pie in Kevin Owens' face? That's, I guess, we'll never know. Triple H, for some reason, can't book the tag team division right. You know, the tag titles, we've said this before, have not been defended on a pay-per-view, dude, since WrestleMania 40. How the fuck does that happen when you have two sets of men's tag team titles? That makes no sense.
It's not time, pal.
I guess listen, you can't challenge someone to a Money in the Bank ladder match, right? Isn't that what Triple H told us?
He did. You can't challenge someone to that.
Dumb. Ahmed also said, how was the War Raiders? Have they defended their tag titles yet? No, they have not. They won the belts, I think, a month ago. They were in a 6-man with Damian Priest in the Judgment Day. I don't think they've wrestled or defended their belts beyond that. They were in the crowd last week. They showed at the Netflix premiere. I don't think they were on the show at all this week. So, yeah, they have not defended their belts.
Yeah, they were. They did a run-in in the main event.
Oh, they did? Did they help Damian Priest? Was that what it was?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
totally
they came in to fight off Carlito and JD.
That's what it was. Penta and Ray run it back. I agree.
You watched the show, buddy, or what?
Apparently, I apparently watched the show as much as Alexis watches the show. Don't tell her I said that. Last time LWO was relevant was when they came out with Bad Bunny, break them up. They're a nostalgia act at this point. But just to clear this up, not on that front, but Bad Bunny made a comment the other day about Backlash being in Mexico. He read the fake report that we all did. Remember we talked about it like a couple months ago, and we thought it was real too, and then it wasn't. Those fake internet, fake news accounts. I think that's what he read too, and he also bought into it. Bad Bunny fucking bought into it. As of now, Mexico is not hosting Backlash, but that obviously could change as we get closer to it. But I got to backtrack here, Mr. Marceau. Ringside Logic a while ago mentioned this while we were talking about Penta, so we got to go back to this. Thank you for bringing this to my attention, Atlee. But WWE and TNA just announced a partnership, apparently. They put out a press release about it like a half hour ago. WWE, I'm just reading the first part of this now. It says, WWE, a part of TKO and TNA Wrestling, one of the world's top wrestling brands and a subsidiary of Anthem Sports Entertainment, announced a multi-year partnership aimed at creating unprecedented crossover opportunities within WWE and TNA programming for NXT superstars and TNA wrestling stars. The agreement will enable talent to garner additional exposure across key WWE and TNA programming, including flagship shows such as NXT, which airs live on the CW in TNA Impact, select WWE premium live events and TNA pay-per-views, in turn bolstering their in-ring development with exposure to world-class talent and coaching. So, I mean, obviously they've already had a, working agreement for a little while now. This isn't just making it official and announcing it. I mean, they first introduced the working relationship in June when Jordynne Grace came in to challenge Roxanne Perez for the NXT Women's Championship. And since then, we've gotten Joe Hendry in NXT, the Rascals. They haven't had any big stars go to TNA. They had Wesley do some stuff there for a while. Gallus. I mean, no one fucking like Trick Williams hasn't been there. Obafemi hasn't been there. Their top women talent has not been there. So it's really one-sided, but it's been an exchange of talent. Rosemary's been on NXT a few times. Alexander Hammerstone, among other people. But this just makes it official. They kind of slowed down the working agreement for a while. Hasn't been any crossover for a bit. I know Masha Slamovich, their current knockout, get used to seeing Joe Hendry or Jordynne Grace on the main roster unless they fucking sign them, which is probably going to happen. But I think this is cool, though, because WWE has not done something like this, if not ever, in a very long time. So I think it's cool. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's mostly for NXT and TNA and Impact, like specifically, but they did put that line in there. Select WWE live events and pay-per-views. So, I mean, I think that maybe that's some verbiage for the Rumble or some other one-offs. But, I mean, I think it's more for TNA and NXT to kind of have that relationship, kind of help TNA, and TNA can help them. And maybe it's, I mean, some kind of trade of talent or, like you said, help them out on a couple shows where they need some more bigger names and vice versa. So, I mean, I think it's good on both ends. I mean, hopefully WWE doesn't just take all their talent and give them nothing. But, I mean, it's kind of what AEW did with the New Japan. They just took anyone that's worth their salt, and now they have no one. So hopefully it's not that. But if I was taking an educated guess, I'd say it is. But hopefully there's an actual working relationship, and they scratch your back, and WWE will scratch theirs. So we'll see.
I'm very glad you said that. I'm excited about this because I love like when companies work together and we get crossovers and shit. I mean, the idea of this ever happening 10, 15 years ago would have been just completely unbelievable. But I'm glad you mentioned AEW and New Japan because that is the back end of this that people not don't talk about, but it's kind of a negative that we should address here. That with AEW working with New Japan, people were clamoring for that when they first started working. When AEW first started in 2019, everyone was like, oh, they got to work with New Japan. They got to use Okada, stuff like that. And yeah, it was great. And when they ended up doing the first Forbidden Door show, it was a lot of fun. The problem, though, is that in working with New Japan and being so close with New Japan, they then signed Okada earlier last year. They then signed Will Ospreay. I don't know about Tomohiro Ishii. I think he's still technically a New Japan guy. But Jay White, Kota Ibushi, a whole bunch of their top stars over in New Japan, a lot of their Gaijin stars specifically, a lot of that means like the non-Japanese talent that are over there. They brought into AEW, and New Japan has gotten who? I mean, they've used some of their talent for some of their shows, but have they signed anyone from AEW? No. New Japan has not really picked up a lot of big free agents in a while. They had fucking Dolph Ziggler and Matt Riddle doing stuff there about a year ago. I don't think they're there anymore. But they really haven't done a great job of replenishing the pot. And I'm not even really someone that follows New Japan closely. But I mean, that's a very one-sided deal. New Japan ain't really benefiting from that whole working relationship is my point. And I feel like WWE and TNA could be something similar. You know, Jordynne Grace's contract is up like this weekend. It's up very soon. She is definitely WWE bound in the coming weeks. And that's fine, but, you know, NXT or TNA to their credit, they did use Mustafa Ali when he left NXT about a year ago, and he had a great run there. They brought in Xia Li recently. She got fired from WWE. I mean, they're not signing CM Punk, but they do got to be careful, like you said, Mr. Marceau, of bringing in these, be careful, like, and poaching their talent, because they've done that before with Ring of Honor, and TNA in the end might end up with a roster that just looks like that Will Smith meme from Fresh Prince, where he's, like, looking around the room. That could be TNA if they're not careful, you know?
No, exactly. Like I said, I think a lot of people want to see the partnership, but at the end of the day, the big fish is going to get what they want. So regardless if you're working with them, they could give you a little bit, but they'll always take what they can always. They have the money and the reach that these people, if WWE is interested in them, they'll run the WWE instead of, they're not going to stay loyal to TNA.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's kind of the same thing what happened in New Japan. Everyone wanted New Japan to work with AEW, but when all these New Japan people came up for contract, guess what? They all went to AEW. Now look at New Japan; it's probably in the worst state it's ever been. So
Yep.
it's great and all, but like I said, at the end of the day, the big company wins, and I hope there's some working relationship, and then they don't just, like I said, just steal everyone from TNA. But I kind of have that feeling that's what will happen.
Yep, I mean, they already used Joe Hendry in NXT, and if his contract is up at some point in 2025, he is absolutely WWE bound, I would have to imagine. Jordan Grace, that's already like the worst kept secret in wrestling that she's probably headed to WWE. Richie had said, Bad Bunny reading the dirt sheets is incredible. He's a fan just like us. Yeah, I mean, he sees all the same shit that we do. And he also said, so we're definitely seeing Joe Hendry in the Rumble at this point, right? I mean, that's a slam dunk. I would imagine, like you said it earlier, that select WWE pay-per-views, that's got to include the Rumble. I would imagine if there's anyone from TNA that would be in the Rumble, we expect Joe Hendry. I mean, not everyone cares about Joe Hendry, but I feel like that would get a great reaction. We think it's Joe Hendry, but instead it's Dolph Ziggler, the TNA World Champion. Can we just say no fucking thanks to that? I mean, I feel like it's still too soon to be bringing back Dolph Ziggler after the 1,000-year run that he had in WWE.
I'd go nuts.
With his old WWE music here to show the world.
I would literally mark.
Remember the record scratch? Remember when we went to the Rumble in 2018, number 30? Oh my God, who's it going to be? Who's it going to be? I'm here to show the world. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Then he got tossed out in like 30 seconds. Like, what is this?
I went nuts. I miss it, honestly.
Dylan also said, Mike wants to know when/if is Brock coming back? Never. Not never, but he's not coming back anytime soon. What would you say to that?
Rumble.
You think Brock will be back in the Rumble?
I hope so.
Do you think in the midst of this ongoing lawsuit where Janelle Grant said, even though Vince said last week, we didn't talk about that, by the way. Vince saying, the case is closed. It's like, which case are we talking about? Like, we all know what case he's talking about. He's not talking about the case, he's talking about a case. Like, he did that on purpose. And Janelle Grant had to put, or not her specifically, but her representation lawyer or whatever, came out and said, yeah, no, the case isn't closed on our end. Like, he's talking about the SEC shit and the whole stock filing stuff, whatever. She's talking about, the rape allegations, all that other shit, sexual harassment, and that's still very much open. I think they're trying to move it to arbitration or something, and they're trying to prevent that. Will she end up settling? We don't know. It's impossible to say. My point is, I can't imagine that they're going to bring Brock back. I mean, he wasn't specifically named in the lawsuit, but they kind of said his name without actually saying his name. I can't imagine he'll be back until that whole thing is cleared up, and we're not even remotely close to that being cleared up. If he's in the Rumble, it would be, I can't say I'd be disappointed, but it would definitely be like, what are we doing here,
I mean, yeah, I guess we really have to see what's going on. I mean, it doesn't really, obviously he was involved, but, wasn't to, obviously, the extent that Vince was.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
I mean, there seemed like there was some shady stuff going on, but nothing actually, came to fruition. So, I mean, it obviously doesn't seem great. I guess if you wanted to, could avoid it, you can. But, I mean, I know a lot of people why would they want Brock back? I like Brock, so, I would like to see him have at least a proper send-off. Last time we saw him, he had that great match with Cody at SummerSlam. We were there, and he, paid his respect to Cody, and then we haven't seen him since. So, I would like a proper send-off, but, if we don't get it, I'm not going to lose sleep over it either. So
yeah, no, well, if you were to say, will he be back? The answer to me is yes. I feel like at some point they'll bring him back. I don't know if they want to do it right now. They might be of the mentality, oh, we'll bring him back and people will be upset. That'll put a lot of heat on him, so to speak. And then, right after that, they'll be like, oh, yeah, people will get over it. It's not that big of a deal. I just don't think he would go away. So I wouldn't run that risk. So I don't think he's back anytime soon. But do I think he will be back at some point? I do. Just I don't think he'll be in the Rumble. If he's in the Rumble, hey, maybe Brock wins the whole thing again like it's 2022. Why not, That'd be interesting. He could face Cody for the belt at WrestleMania. How about that?
Book it.
Last couple things here. Ahmed said, I swear to God, if Joe Hendry loses to Dolph Ziggler again, hey, it's Nick Nemeth. Got to get it right, Ahmed. It's Nick Nemeth now. It's not the same guy. He should just walk out of TNA. They obviously don't appreciate him. I can't imagine he would lose again. If he does lose again, it's because he's probably headed to WWE soon. But I don't think he's headed to WWE soon, so I think Joe Hendry will win the championship this weekend. And I think they wanted to wait, honestly, because if Joe Hendry's in the Rumble, they might want him in the Rumble as the TNA World Champion, especially coming off this news about the working agreement. I feel like that just makes the most sense. Dylan also said the agreement sounds great for both parties, but mostly NXT talent. especially to see how a different show crowd reacts to NXT wrestlers. No, exactly. I mean, there's a lot of NXT people that are not experienced and they need more experience. And they've brought a lot of NXT people over to TNA, not big names, but people that would need the exposure, not exposure really, but like need the experience, like Izzy Dame. I don't really give a fuck about Izzy Dame, but like, she's getting more reps by being on that show, and I think it helps. And Ahmed also said, not gonna lie, guys, last Friday when Vince said the case was closed, I almost got a heart attack thinking he was coming back. No chance in hell, right? That we could hear that on Raw this coming Monday, Mr. Marcel.
I literally am getting ready to go nuts.
It's not going to happen on Raw. It's going to happen on Monday. Or it's going to happen to the Rumble, rather.
Number 30.
Number 30, Vince McMahon, a former Royal Rumble winner in his own right. God, that would be awful. I can tell you there is no chance in hell that we hear that music on WWE TV ever again, at least until he dies. When he dies, they might put up a video package, but, other than that, I don't think we'll ever see Vince back on WWE TV. Last thing for you, Mr. Marceau. We won't go into each thing here, obviously. We're about to run out of time, but I thought Raw on Monday was a great show. Obviously, Lyra Valkyria, the all-new inaugural Women's Intercontinental Champion, beating Dakota Kai in a good match. They should have gotten more time, but I thought it was a nice match. Punk, Rollins, Drew, all declaring for the Men's Royal Rumble match. That's a stacked Rumble if you throw in Roman Reigns and John Cena. It's a pretty fucking stacked field there. Bayley making an appearance was cool. A lot of stuff going on. Finn Balor, Damian Priest, really good street fight. We mentioned the Penta debut against Chad Gable. That was a great match. Just your overall thoughts on Raw on Monday and how it was, to me anyway, a much better show than even the Netflix premiere, which we both enjoyed. But I thought Monday's Raw was a much better taste of what you can expect every Monday night going forward on Netflix.
No, I thought Monday's Raw was great. I thought it was produced well. I thought it was formatted right. Like, we had the good segment to start off with Drew and Punk and Rollins. They're all declared for the Rumble. Like you said, that's going to be a pretty stacked Rumble. Then we went right in. I think it was Sheamus and Ludwig was right around there. I might have been missing something, but they were right after that. And then we kind of got the whole Sheamus and Braun set up for Saturday night's main event, which was good. Lyra beating Dakota. I mean, I thought overall it was a good match. Like I said, I don't know if the timing thing was great, but
yeah,
I think Lyra winning was right. The crowd was into it, so I think that's kind of the positive. And then the street fight main event was good. Priest beat Finn again, so hopefully it's over. And I mean, he's already beaten him twice before that, so it's third time's the charm maybe. But all in all, I thought it was good. Gunther and Jay at Saturday night's main event. That's a good little marquee. Highly doubt Jay will win, so just lose again. But at least it'll be a bigger popular name on that show, so it should gain some more viewership for that show.
Yeah, I'm glad they made more matches official for Saturday night's main event, because up until now we didn't even know. No, I mean, we obviously knew what was happening, but they barely acknowledged it because all eyes are on the Rumble and WrestleMania and shit. So, yeah, they made Gunther and Jay official. I doubt Jay wins, but hey, I said to you before we went live here, maybe Goldberg, who's scheduled to be at Raw in a couple weeks, maybe he costs Gunther the championship. If Jay wins the world title, it's a great moment, but he's not going to walk into WrestleMania with it. He's going to fucking lose it within a month or two, so...
yeah, but he did the same thing with the IC title.
Well, so that's the thing. I was fine with that. I don't want to sound like a hypocrite. I was fine with it there. I just feel like...
hypocrite.
I feel like to do it again a month later is just lazy, though. That's my problem. And also, who beats Jay for the belt? Does he lose it inside Elimination Chamber back to Gunther? That's just fucking dumb. I would rather if Jay's going to win it, it'd be saved for like a big moment. That's my thing.
Yeah, I mean... I guess the only other thing too, it's like if he did win it, like I guess you could like add on like, oh, anything can happen. Like so you get Goldberg on, if that's the case, you get Goldberg on the show. I mean, like I said, I don't think it's gonna happen, but I mean, the running back again, I feel like Jay would look like a complete idiot to lose again to him. But I mean, he's also done that a ton, so who knows?
Yeah. And they know that he's over, so they might just run that risk of him losing again, and it's okay because he loses whenever it matters most. I mean, not every time. He did win the IC Championship, which was great. I was fine with that being a short run. I just wouldn't do that again with the world title. I would save that for down the road. You know, I'm not saying he can't win the world championship. I just think it'd be weird if he won it and then lost it right back to Gunther, or like if like Punk or Rollins win it. I mean, maybe, but I don't know. I also don't really know what you do with Jey Uso at Mania, but your idea from last week about the Usos and Sami Zayn versus like Drew and Rollins and Owens or whatever, you know, something along those lines would be pretty fucking cool too. So I guess we'll see what they do. Yeah, and the main event was great. I just hope that that's it for Damian and Finn. We can finally move on, transfer one of them or all of the Judgment Day to SmackDown. and we could just move on from that feud. But yeah, Lyra and Dakota, not to shortchange them, but they did get a little bit, not as much time as they should have, maybe because of the Penta promo reportedly. We don't know for sure, but I thought they had a really nice match, a great moment for Lyra. I know you were freaking out, and hopefully, step 1 is complete. Lyra is the all-new Women's IC champion. Step 2, Becky Lynch comes back and challenges her for that championship at WrestleMania. I'm still not optimistic it's going to happen, but we can dream, right?
That's why I wake up every morning. It's the dream, pal.
Last thing here from Dylan. This is terrible, but I do have to mention it because he sent in the chat. He said, special Rumble... I can't even say this. He said, special Rumble... What'd you say?
I'm too busy laughing at it.
Did you already see it?
I see it.
He said, special Rumble entry number...
I can't.
I can't. Vince is number 31, and then Janelle Grant throws him out and wins. And wins the lawsuit, maybe? Maybe that's what's on the line. Not a title shot at WrestleMania. That's terrible. Dylan, you should be ashamed. That's awful. It's funny, but it's bad. Anyway, we're going to wrap up on that comment. We'll be back here. There's a lot of news today, so we'll do more of a formal show next week. Maybe less news, but it's WrestleMania season, so I have no idea what we're going to talk about, what we're not going to talk about. But you can, what are we going to talk about, like Cody Rhodes would say? But every Thursday here on the channel, podcast platforms, rate, review, subscribe, all that stuff, greatly appreciated. Drop a like on the video if you haven't already. If you're watching live, listening to us live, drop a comment in the chat next time. If you're tuning in live, be sure to hit the subscribe button and hit that bell button to be notified. Every time we go live here on the channel talking this, Vince and Janelle, or whatever the fuck else we're going to be talking about here on the show, going forward. You never know what might be brought up in the chat, so always a fun time to tune in live. Mr. Marceau, brother, take care. Have a great rest of your week, and I'll catch your ass next week, brother.
See you later, man.
Adios. Thank you guys again for tuning in. I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Marceau, for tuning in. We did try something else different with the audio. Like I said earlier, I actually called Mr. Marceau through my laptop. I got a newer laptop as of last year, thank fucking God. So it works now, which is great. And hopefully that sounded good, and hopefully my audio worked as well. Oh, I know in the beginning it did not, but hopefully going forward we have it down, and that was entirely my fault. But thank you guys for tuning in as always. Like I said earlier, new episodes every Thursday, new episodes on all the new podcast platforms. Rate, review, subscribe, all that stuff, greatly appreciated. Dylan said Punisher time. Now, we're watching Punisher next time I see you. Alex, thank you for tuning in. Dylan, see you this weekend. I appreciate it. Ahmed, he said, see you, fun stream. Thank you, Ahmed, for tuning in. I appreciate all you guys tuning in live, chatting. Whole lot of fun today. We have a lot of fun every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. I'll be next live with you guys on Saturday talking SmackDown, so keep an eye out for that. Until next time, guys, I'm Graham G.S. Matthews. Have an awesome rest of your week. For Mr. Marceau, we'll catch your ass down the road.